Hey guys, and welcome back to another video on my channel. I hope everyone's having a fantastic day today. Today we are going to be doing another speed build, and this speed build is going to be a lot which I am going to use for a wedding in my upcoming sim series. Katie and Neville are engaged and they are going to get married, so I was trying to design the perfect wedding lot, something that I loved a lot, so that when I actually do the wedding in the Sims I would just really relate to it and I would just have a lot of fun with it. So I wanted to go for a fairly natural wedding venue. I was loosely basing this off of a place that's fairly close to me, a place where my sister actually got married, and it's kind of like this garden center in a way, and it is just absolutely stunning. There's natural waterfalls, there's just a lot of plants everywhere. There's actually, I think, like a mini petting zoo place there. I'm not sure, I haven't been there in a really long time, but it's absolutely incredible, and so I wanted to try and base this wedding lot off of that one, but with a little bit more of a twist. So the main feature, I would say, for this build is the little lake and the waterfall. I couldn't actually get the illusion of a waterfall, which is a little bit disappointing, but I did try my very best in order to do it because I wanted it to look very natural. I didn't know how to cover up these cliffs where the brown is showing, because the terrain paint doesn't really cover it like it covers the other ground. So I was trying to figure out what I could do to make it look a little bit more natural, and the way I decided to do this was to place a ton of rocks. And when I say a ton, I mean a ton. Like easily I could spend 2 hours of this build just placing different rocks and different size rocks, but you'll definitely see that as time goes on a little bit. I didn't choose a park venue or anything. The lot I decided to build this on is actually a lot in Willow Creek. There's two kind of isolated houses in this area, and I decided to demolish them both. And the first lot, obviously, I decided to do this build on, and the other lot, I just put a bunch of trees there. So if you kind of look at it, it looks a little bit more natural, and in the future I'll probably build something there. Because this is based off of a gardening center, I would like to build like a little gardening shop there, but I didn't want to really tackle that right now at this moment. So at the moment I'm just going to be focusing on this little wedding build, and over here you can see where I'm busy talking about all of the different rocks. Every now and again you'll just see a bunch of rocks randomly appear and me just kind of moving it around. I just cut out a lot of the time of me just placing down rocks and sizing it up, because that was really interesting to watch, and I tried to just keep the parts where I'm actually going around the outskirts of the lake, because in my opinion that's more natural, and over here I'm building the kind of rocky monument. Later when we go around the build, you'll see that the outskirts I didn't really add a lot of rocks to it, and that's because I was still busy with this build at about like 3 a.m. today, and I didn't even like come close to placing all of the rocks I did. So I decided to just kind of take the L and just place the rocks where you could mostly see the build, because most of the time you're not just going to keep like going around the outskirts because there's nothing really there. So that's the decision I made. If you guys want to download this lot, it will be available on my gallery to download, and my gallery tag is in the description. But if you want to add some more rocks, you're more than welcome to. I was also very worried because I was placing a lot of rocks, a decent amount of plants, and a part of me was worried that if I loaded this build then maybe the game would crash, because there was just so many things that would have had to load. My PC is fairly powerful, like it works really well and it's been working well for years. So just the fact that I was getting a little bit worried, I feel like if somebody doesn't have as strong of a PC, I don't want this lot to constantly break, and if it does then you'll obviously have to take away a lot of the rocks. So at the end of the day I decided to just kind of weigh my options, and I didn't cover the entire outskirts with the rocks and everything. So when it comes to the different plants that I wanted on this build, it was a little bit tricky because a lot of the trees that I wanted didn't really suit the build. There are these like white and pink trees that I really wanted to use because it just feels really magical, and I feel like it goes really well with the wedding theme. But it was very difficult finding a good place to put a lot of them, and normal trees was very difficult to try and figure out if it worked with the build or if it didn't work with the build. In the end I ended up going with these little palm trees that I believe came with Jungle Adventure, and I used quite a few plants that came with Jungle Adventure because it just really suited the wedding build a lot. Even if the plants don't look like it's supposed to be in this region necessarily, I think with everything going on, it just looked the best in my opinion, so I went for it. A different feature that I decided to do was that I added some of these plants in between the different rocks, and it just looked really good. I wasn't too sure how it would look, because when I think of like a rocky type of setting, sometimes you can kind of get a little bit of greenery growing in between them, but I wasn't sure how it was going to look, and in my opinion I think it looks pretty awesome, so I'm glad that I did that. Over here, I'm busy working on the main reception area, and a decent amount is going to change. The roof is going to change for this build. I wanted to kind of keep it very open theme, but I will close the roof eventually, so you can just like ignore what I did with the roof. Something that I did really enjoy was taking some more of these plants from Jungle Adventure and sizing them up and putting them around the pillars, and it just looked really good. It doesn't fit exact, but I think that it just worked really well. Kind of gives that flower element to the build without it being too overwhelming, and so that's something that I really love doing. We will also be adding a bunch of curtains, and we'll probably do that in a little bit. I don't know if we're going to do that right now, but I was trying to figure out which curtains would work really well, because it is an open theme and there is literally water right underneath. Sometimes I would size up the curtains and it would kind of fall into the lake, and I was like, although it looks okay, realistically that would be so disgusting just to have curtains constantly sitting in lake water. So I was trying to figure out what the best curtains were going to be, and I ended up going for these little see-through curtains. The see-through curtains worked really well in my opinion, because I was trying out a bunch of different curtain combinations and a lot of them just felt like it was very claustrophobic, and so with the see-through curtains it really felt like you can just kind of breathe. And the other curtains that I am about to add, I want to say that it's a base game curtain, and I normally relate it to like nurseries and stuff because it's so colorful and playful, but you can actually change it to white and it's pulled back curtains, so I think that works really well. You can always like loosen it hypothetically to give you some more privacy, or you can keep it pulled back, and so it really works with the open theme that I wanted to go for, because it very much gives open vibes. Next up, we are going to go to this famous roof that I keep talking about changing, and not only are we going to make it one constant roof, but I'm also changing the pattern on the roof. So because it's a glass ceiling, when the sun comes in it kind of projects this shadow of a pattern on the floor, and it looks really cool. Later on, when I add in a bunch of different objects and stuff, it does feel a bit overwhelming with that pattern, so you might want to change it depending on your preference, but I just think it works really well for a wedding. I always relate that glass ceiling to be like very romantic, and so that's why I decided to do it. Over here we are building the actual wedding place, and this is where the arch is going to be. This is where everybody's going to gather for the ceremony. I wasn't too sure where I wanted to put this, whether I wanted to put it right in front or whether I wanted to put it on the hill kind of in the back somewhere. I did want the arch to be raised because I was trying to look what would be the best background, and when it was closer to the floor you couldn't really see much in line with the wedding arch, but when it's raised then you can kind of see the rock features and you can see the trees and you can see a little bit of the reception area, and so I really love the idea of just having it raised on this little platform over here. We also add in a bunch of plants. I feel like with a wedding there's always going to be a bunch of flowers and stuff, so there's some flowers at the back, and also those pillars by the stairs. And when it came to the seating was tricky because I didn't know how I wanted to have the seating. Normally I'll have a aisle and the seating will be on both sides of it, and that's normally how I do my wedding builds, but because of the structure they kind of enter from the sides, and so we have the whole center area for seating, and I really just did not know what to do, but eventually I came up with a pretty cool idea. You'll probably see it in a little bit, but I basically got a fountain, and I wanted this to be one of the main features, but obviously I didn't want to take away from the wedding itself. So what we're going to do with the fountain is we're actually going to add a bunch of plants to it so it looks like a flower fountain, if that kind of makes sense. And then I also bunched the seats together so it kind of looks like double seating or triple seating or something. After a while I decided that there was too much seating, so I'm going to take away the middle two chairs and I'm going to move the fountain forward. And even though there's less seating, I feel like it just looks a lot better and a lot less cramped because I had no idea where to put everything. I also sized down these little flower beds and put them on the back of the chairs because I really wanted to do something like that for a wedding chair. I wanted to add something to the back just to make it look a bit more interesting, and those flowers worked really well, especially sized down to the size that I had it. It just in really well and it looked pretty natural for a wedding, so I decided to go for it. I am also adding in a bit of a different floor just so that it doesn't all look white and it all doesn't just blend together. So I changed the flooring, and again I feel like that really worked. I was going to enclose this area with this little mini fence, but later as I was looking through I found these other details and I don't really know what to call it, but I know it came for get together and you can see it right now on screen, but that looked a lot better in my opinion than just the solid white fence. So I decided to put that all around the edging, leaving some spaces open so people can obviously walk through it, but at the back where the flower pots are, I decided to leave that a solid wall, just to kind of separate all of the different textures from each other. I also found this garden arch, I don't know what to call it, and I just added it to the wedding arch, and I didn't actually play test that, but hopefully it's going to work and the Sims don't get stuck on it. If they do, it can easily just be taken out. It's not that much of a big deal, but I thought it looked really cool. And over here I'm adding in some of these little mason jar lanterns to this tree, and I love doing that. I believe there's actually a pack, I'm not sure if it's a stuff pack or a game pack, but it naturally comes with a tree that has these lanterns attached to it, and I'm not going to spend a ton of money to do something that I can do for free, so I decided to add that to the wedding venue, and it looks really cool at night because it actually does help light up the area a lot. I did also add in a bunch of lanterns, but I think we might do that a little bit later on. I really love the idea of having a bunch of candles everywhere to make a setting really romantic, and so that's what I'm going to do a little bit more later in the build. On this little hilltop, as you can see, I added in a sneaky woohoo bush because I feel like every wedding venue in The Sims needs to have a woohoo bush somewhere, just so like as soon as you're married you guys can seal the deal. I really like doing that for gameplay purposes, especially not just for gameplay but also for storytelling purposes. I think it's like, oh, it's our wedding day, it's so romantic, the vibes are great, let's go get the family started. So I always tend to sneak woohoo bushes on my different lots and stuff, and I love doing that and I'm gonna keep doing that, so this build isn't any different. Over here we are about to work on the reception area, and I decided to add in a dance floor with a DJ booth. A lot of weddings you'll have classical trained people playing different music, or pianists or violinists or something. I want a DJ booth, okay? That's the type of wedding that I want to go to and have fun at. I don't need no classic music. Play me something cool and fun and something I can party to and we're good. I also wanted to add in a place where we can actually sit and eat, because for the game I'm actually going to hire caterers for the wedding. This is a big deal, so I needed somewhere for the food to be, and the big table in the middle is for the bride and groom. Hopefully that's how it will work. I'm sure any sim would just sit there and annoy the living daylights out of me, but that's okay. And then obviously I added in a few more seatings just around the place. I decided to take out a table to add in a bar because I feel like at weddings there's always a bar. So that's the way I decided to do the reception area, and I really love the way that it turned out. I also don't know if I mentioned, but the dance floor I put in is actually like glass at the bottom, so you can actually look down on the lake while you dance, and I thought that was just really cool to do. Over here we kind of have this extra room, and it was really tricky because I didn't want to put a kitchen on this lot because that just feels really weird, but because I was going to hire caterers for a wedding, I knew that I needed to put in a kitchen somewhere, and in my opinion this was the best place to put the kitchen. I did consider doing an underground kitchen, but I thought that would be a little bit more dramatic, and so I decided to kind of half this space and use it for a kitchen, use it for bathrooms, and also use it for something else that I'll get to in a little bit more detail as we go on further. So the bathrooms are nothing special. I mostly just wanted it to be functional. I didn't know what design to really go for, so I just went with whatever I thought was best, and I also added in flowers. because the bathrooms were on a horizontal, it felt like there was a lot more space than there actually was, which was just really weird to try and work with that space. But at the end of the day, as long as there's somewhere that my Sims can go when they need to, I think that it works perfectly fine. I am going to add in little chairs into the bathroom. I don't know, maybe if you're waiting for your friend, you can just sit there. So that's just something you can do. Over here, we are just going to quickly put in some soap into the bathroom, and then we are probably going to go into the kitchen. No, we're not going into the kitchen, we're going here. There's a book on a table with a mirror and some flowers, and my idea for this was, after you get married, you kind of need to sign your papers. And so I thought, oh, this would be like a nice little place where you can like sign your papers and the memories or something like that. I don't know, I haven't been married before. But over here we are just quickly working on the kitchen. So I wanted a nice big fancy kitchen, but there just wasn't enough space to do that. So I basically just did a basic design and mimicked it on both ends, because there are going to be a couple caterers and I didn't want them to keep clashing with one another. So that's why I kind of did the same design, but I halved it in 2 different places. And I could have put 2 sinks in for dishes, but I decided to only put 1 sink in. At the end of the day, I don't think it's that much of a big deal. I'm pretty sure if you leave a lot and come back, the dishes that were there despawn, but I'm not too sure about that now that I think about it. But the idea was just to have a separation, so if you have multiple people in the kitchen, then you won't keep running into each other, because that's something that's always annoying when you hire a caterer and you need to quickly make something in the kitchen and you just can't reach anything. Over here, I'm just going to work on some more details. We are going for the lake right now. I added in some lily pads, but I'm also adding in some swan spawners as well as some dragonfly spawners, just to make it look like really magical and nice. Over here I am adding a present table, and unfortunately those presents don't actually work. So I'm curious to see if I bring a stack of presents, if my Sims will be able to open it on the lot. I think that would probably work better, but if you download this lot, your Sim will not actually be able to open the presents, but only view the presents, and it's not that much of a big deal. I did want a present table because realistically I think when you go to weddings there's always a present table, but it's not like a big thing in The Sims, so it's not that much of a big deal. I also forgot to add that on the present pile I added like a little clock with a bow on it. I thought that was really cute, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to get that clock in the game and pretend like somebody gave it to me as a gift. So I thought that was a really cute thing to do. And lastly, I'm just going to focus on putting some more rocks around the place to try and make it look more natural again. But like I said, I pretty much just gave up after a while because it was taking so long, and realistically I didn't need to cover the entire lot in rocks. So I'm going to kind of do this bit, and that's basically it. I'm not going to keep going around the entire lot and constantly add rocks because I just didn't feel like it was necessary. So yeah, that's basically the build in all of its glory. Now we are finally at the screenshots, and I think that this build looks really good. If you want to try and test it in different lighting, I think maybe at nighttime or at sunset, especially, this build looks really good. So I'm really proud of what we did, and I'm super excited to test it out in game, which will be coming out in a few days. You guys will be able to see how that goes. Yeah, this was actually a lot of fun to build. I was really stressed trying to build the perfect wedding lot, and at the end of the day I really love what I came up with. So I'm really glad that I decided to do this. If you guys want to download this build, then just look down below in the description and you'll find my origin ID. You can just look it up in game and you should be able to find it. It's probably going to be saved under wedding venue or something similar to that. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed it, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so that you're notified every time I post a new video. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys!